Post office scandal has been described as this country's worst ever miscarriage of justice. And I think that's what is referring to is the scale of it. The fact that so many people were charged and implicated falsely. Over 700 people, I believe, and over 500 made legal proceedings to clear themselves. Actually, I think it began with over 700, and some of them have actually passed away in that time. So it would be remiss of me not to say something about this subject. Now, I must be honest, I haven't followed it extensively. I've been following other news items, but I've been looking at it in the background, and I never watched that program on ITV, Mr. Bates versus the Post Office. Apparently, it was very powerful drama. I mean, Toby Jones is a very good actor. I wish I had seen it now, but whilst I commend ITV for that, and I commend the program makers, well, really, I should say the program makers, for making a powerful drama that has arguably changed the course of history in terms of the legal proceedings around this. It really shouldn't come down to a TV show. I mean, this is a problem in Britain. It's always after the fact that things have to change. Every time after the fact. Whether it's one scandal too many, whether it's one disaster that changes legislation, it's always after the fact. So one does wonder, if that programme hadn't been transmitted, would there be as much attention on this? I mean, Rishi Sunak's done the right thing. He's, fast tracking the situation now, but really these people have been campaigning for years. So there's a lot of focus on Mr. Bates, but also all the others who've been campaigning for justice. I mean, the human cost of this is profound. There's been several suicides, lives have been ruined, marriages wrecked. In several cases, people have actually served prison time, treated like criminals, no doubt put in prisons with rapists, with serious offenders, And the chilling thing is they were innocent. That all of this was because of a technical error. One thing that I find, I mean, there's a lot of things that are frustrating with this, but one thing is that even now, apparently, now it may have changed, like I say, I'm not watching the developments on this on religiously, but apparently even now there are contracts being given to Horizon, the program that was responsible for the technical faults. I mean, if that is the case, that is just a no-brainer. Stop it immediately. Cancel all contracts. Clearly, there's a problem in the technology. But I think Paula Venel should be judicially punished. I don't think it should be vigilantism, because she's now probably the most hated person in the country. But it's for the simple question of justice. I mean, this is not a case of they genuinely believe that these people were stealing. It was about covering up their mistakes, and basically these people becoming the scapegoat. Hundreds of lives ruined. It's an absolute disgrace. So I do think that she should be charged with something, whether it be fraud in terms of deliberately hiding the information. Or, I'm not a jurist. I'm not a legal expert. That's not for me to say. But I don't think returning her CPE is enough. This woman knew there were problems, and nevertheless, these prosecutions went ahead. In fact, a lot of people in the pecking order knew there were problems. There was a lot of focus on that guy. I forget his name now, but he was at the parliamentary inquiry, and he was being compared to a mafia enforcer and so on. That's a little bit of sensationalism. I suppose you could say technically he was just doing his job. But the point there is, it's the way he was doing it. Now, if he is tasked with investigating, then okay, investigate. But don't then play judge, jury, and executioner before being sure of the facts. And by all accounts, the way he spoke to people very much was assuming guilt. And I think that's the fundamental problem with this assumption of guilt, that these people had no due process, really, in terms of just the assumption of guilt. I also think that there needs to be serious questions about their trials. I mean, why was it not considered that the technology was faulty? Why was there, some of this makes no sense. These people weren't, they had to sell their own homes and so on to pay their legal bills. So it wasn't like they were taking money for profit. It's not like they were going off on holidays um, to Spain or whatever. They had to use money to pay their legal bills, which is a complete disgrace. Their own money, in some cases running up to tens of thousands of pounds. Um, the effect this would have had on people's mental health, the anxiety, being treated like criminals. In some cases, there was one postmaster who was stigmatised in his community in South London. There's so many cases like this. So for me, there's several takeaways. Firstly, it's always the case. This should never happen again. It shouldn't have happened. But I think there's one point of all of this that hasn't been spoken about enough: over reliance on technology. This idea of, well, the technology is definitely right, so the person, the human being, must be lying. Even though these are respectable people who have never had a criminal record, or they're respected members of the community, and then suddenly they're just treated like criminals. Why was it never questioned? Well, maybe the technology is faulty. Why was it never seriously considered? So for me, this is one of these areas where you need to consider: are we relying too much on technology? Now, I don't know the exact ins and outs of how that Horizon program worked, but clearly it was faulty. Fujitsu's been brought into this. They've got questions to answer. Ed Davey has questions to answer. He was the minister responsible at the time. He refused to meet people. And that's another point from all of this. Now, ministers are busy people, but when you have someone campaigning on a matter of justice, on the matter of clearing people's names, I think that should be a priority. Ed Davies called for other public figures to resign. Maybe it's time he did as well, because of the scale of this. I think it would be appropriate for Ed Davey to resign. Um, you know, of course, this shouldn't be kind of, well, now let's get revenge. But I think Mr. Bates and others have shown incredible integrity. They haven't been demanding revenge. They simply want justice. One of the postmasters said he didn't even want Paula Reynolds to go to jail, but they want to see justice. They have every right to be angry. Um, but it isn't just Paula Reynolds. She's at the top of the pecking order. But there will have been others who just took this attitude of the technology's right, you must be lying. Even though, it's just common sense. If people were stealing to benefit themselves, then they would have been going off on expensive holidays, but they were paying their legal bills. So there was a common sense deficit in all of this. Anyway, I'll wrap this up. But um, yes, compensation's been offered now, and I know Mr. Bates said it's not enough. To be honest, it probably never will be. But I think the real thing from this is there has to be justice. It's not good enough that people like Paula Reynolds just, oh well, lose your honour. I think if there is evidence of criminal wrongdoing on her part, i.e., deliberately ignoring faulty technology and therefore letting people fall under the bus, I think she should be judicially punished. Um, Not because of, not a media witch hunt or something like that, but because it is the right thing. And not just her, others as well. Um, it's an absolute disgrace what these people have been through, and it shouldn't happen again. But the lesson from this is there shouldn't be an assumption that technology is always right and people are therefore lying. When you have a postmaster who's been working in their community for years and they've never, their honesty's never been called into question, their personal integrity's never been called into question, and then suddenly they're treated like a criminal, that has to raise question marks. We've had a few other miscarriages of justice in this country in recent years. Mr. Malkinson, falsely accused of rape, spent 17 years in prison. Greater Manchester police officers an apology. Now, again, the government had to act and retrospectively change the law that those who served time for crimes they didn't commit would have to pay board, an absolute disgrace. Again, that was fast tracked. But these things, it shouldn't have to take a scandal or an outrage to change things. It should just be common sense. If someone has done time for a crime they did not commit, they are a victim. They're a victim of the justice system. Now, I'm a conservative on crime. I believe the guilty should be punished. I'm not anti-punishment, but it has to be the right person. And in this case, it was a machine. So I just hope these people can begin to rebuild their lives. It's too late for those who took their own lives. Um, but hopefully something could come out of this. I hope they can rebuild their lives, and hopefully some good comes out in the sense of, in the future there'll be more caution taken. Now, of course, that doesn't mean there will be some people in every profession who are dishonest. You might well get in the future a postmaster who really does steal. But nevertheless, the mistake here has been this assumption of guilt. Hundreds of lives ruined. And I just commend them for their tirelessness in trying to bring light to this. Let me know your thoughts.